Glory, glory, hallelujah, and praise be to Thomas Wade Landry, that football god who looks down upon us from football heaven and showers blessings and football joy across the land. Welcome in. It's the Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney, Dave Ayler, your soundscape stylist. And I got to bed later than I would like to normally get to bed with the 3 a.m. wake-up call last night. But I don't care because heaven was upon my television screen as at 9 o'clock last night, the power and the glory and the greatness and the absolute bliss that is Hard Knocks Dallas Cowboys training camp on HBO and HBO Max and whatever the heck else kind of platforms now have it, was on my television. Shannon, I know you like to be in bed by 8:30 if you can, but last night was a special occasion. Did you stay up for Hard Knocks?
It was a special occasion, and I had every intent of staying up, but the time in between me typically settling down and the start of Hard Knocks was too much. I didn't know what to do with myself. I went ahead and went to bed, and instead got up a little bit earlier than normal to watch Hard Knocks. So I'm still in it.
Yes.
Okay, I just took the watch it later route, and I don't have HBO the channel. I have just the app.
Yeah.
And so when they air these things, I think right when they start at 9, like 9:05, you can typically jump on there and watch them on demand. But I also didn't want to stay up without knowing that for sure and me stay up and then it not be there. So just getting up and kind of doing my typical morning routine, but also having that on in the background. And it was well worth it. It's a fantastic watch.
There's something about, and even when it's not the Cowboys, but when it is the Cowboys, then it's just through the roof for me. I mean, even, when it was the Oakland Raiders before they moved to Las Vegas, whoever it is, there's something about the way Hard Knocks tells the story. And I'm sure part of it is that at this time of the year, I know I am starved for football. But last night, and for you this morning, and for anybody, whenever you get Hard Knocks on demand, if you don't have HBO or HBO Max or the app, find a friend who does or get one. If you're a Cowboys fan, you're going to love it. It's just the way they did it, to see Dak Prescott on my screen, Ezekiel Elliott, Cowboys training camp. It was, and then the game, they did their coverage of the Hall of Fame game between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Dallas Cowboys. It was absolutely outstanding as always. I thought it was a tremendous episode.
The team and the organization gets a heavy hand in the final cutting room floor, and the Cowboys could have very easily shied away from some of the things that they chose to highlight in this first episode. So I applaud them for that. It made it that much more entertaining. I mean, the show started off with kind of a shock, at least to me anyway, with Dak admitting he actually had 2 surgeries on that ankle. The first one was just to kind of clean things up because it was an open wound. And then the second one was more constructive. And he showed off he calls it little wishbone scar. And he's right. It does look like he's got a little wishbone on that ankle there. Of course, I had to kind of cover my eyes the first couple minutes because they were replaying a lot of went down with that injury. I was like, it's ingrained in my brain forever. I don't need the recap of that. But that opening was, I don't think we've ever had a Hard Knocks with an opening like that. Just quarterback one-on-one telling his story. But it's a great start to the comeback year he's about to have.
And we certainly hope that it will be his comeback year. But you're right in that injury, and you see his foot go the wrong way and stay there where it's not supposed to be pointing in the direction it's pointing. They showed it multiple times. Dak explains it. And Dak also reminds us, you look at all that Dak Prescott has been going through. He reminds us he came into that season, 2020, just a few months removed from his brother committing suicide.
Yes.
So he had a lot that he was going through. And then for him to get that injury, and he even says in the moment, I'm sure there's a lot of adrenaline going on. He was he's on the field and you see him try to do it. he sees his foot pointing the wrong way, and he tries to put it back into place, and he realizes pretty quickly he can't do it. And then he even says, and we saw, and as we recall from the moment having watched it live, about that moment when he's on the stretcher and other players came up to him to wish him well, that, that's when the emotion hit him. That's when he realized his season was over last season, a mere 4 games into the season. But it was phenomenal. And I'm sure we'll talk about it here and there throughout the morning, Shannon, but I was also surprised at the level of F-bombs. I know we hear F-bombs.
Too many or not enough?
Too many.
Okay.
More than I would expect, in a coaches meeting. Mike McCarthy, every other word is an F-bomb. You hear those. I'm no prude. I hear the F-bomb a lot in Hard Knocks. I'm used to it. I know what happens out there on the football field. I know this is the way people talk, and especially in the heat of the moment. But yeah, in every meeting and in every exchange, whether it's Mike McCarthy or Dak Prescott, it's word, F-bomb, word, F-bomb, F-bomb, F-bomb. It was pretty jarring to hear that many F-bombs, throughout the show to me.
I will say most of the time there's other words before or after the F-bomb, and for whatever reason, McCarthy, he just kind of blurts it out. And you're like, wait, what? I need some context, because now you're just dropping them to drop them. But that is football, and you're right. That's if you're gonna watch Hard Knocks, and we only have it's hard to grab clips from that show because there are so many. You cut out one, and then there's someone in the background letting go of another one. So
yeah. Well, but no, and I realize it comes with Hard Knocks, and I've seen every season of Hard Knocks. I believe there were more, if there were 42, an average 42 F-bombs in a normal Hard Knock, there were 77 last night. If 42 is the average. If
they watch it back, to be like, okay, if like their moms, because wasn't there one season? Well, I think it was Carl Nassib, right, where his mom called him after watching Hard Knocks and said, "You're too much," and she told him to stop cursing.
That's funny.
He was on TV, and some people think that if you are someone who uses even one curse word, that you are the wrong kind of person.
Mm-hmm.
Which I don't abide by, but okay. And so we had mothers calling players to say, "Look, language." And go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say they really highlighted the Zeke and Dak relationship, and I don't know of anyone else on any team who would have the balls to steal the quarterback's bike, but Zeke did it, and they didn't show us when Dak got his bike back, but I did find some audio of the altercation that did occur.
You want me to ask for my bike back? I wasn't stressed. What bike? The beach cruiser. The one I let you use a couple of weeks ago. What I've been asking you about. That bike. You wanted it back, homie. It's right here. Yeah, it's just like it's both ours. Keep it down at my house. Cool. Oh! That's my bike, Pop!
So nice of Dak's lineman to hook him up with a bike in the meantime, prior to getting that back from his buddy Zeke.
Yeah, and you mentioned the relationship between Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott. Of course, another thread throughout is Dak's birthday, and Zeke buying a birthday gift for Zach and wrapping the birthday box, and not the best. And I could relate to that. I don't wrap gifts well.
That's me wrapping a gift.
Yeah. So anyway, I give it a 10. It was outstanding in my view. Obviously, I'm biased as a Cowboys fan, but again, Hard Knocks, whether it's Cowboys or not, they always do a great job. And when it's Cowboys, if you're a Cowboys fan, it is extra special. We will talk more Cowboys and more Hard Knocks throughout the morning. Want to just tell you everything else going on today's show. First of all, if you're new to the show or if you're not, we are streaming live video, and I found out when I got into the studio, the camera was pointed away from me. I thought maybe that's a sign. Maybe I should have just kept it where it was. And then I logged in, and the name I saw was Calvin Casey. Calvin Casey does a show in San Antonio called The Sports Grind, along with our good friend Mike Harge. So apparently Calvin Casey, who's, I don't know how he does it if he's in here by himself, but he sits on the other side of the studio. And anyway, had the camera pointed that way. So I'm still tweaking the camera. It's the angle's still not right, but you've got a good angle of Shannon Salty Sweeney. You can access that live video a number of ways through Facebook on AM 1300 The Zone's Facebook page. You can do it through Ticket 760's Facebook page. There is a YouTube link to it. There is a Twitch link as well. And you can also see Mr. Dave Ayler, your soundscape stylist, now appearing on the screen in a plain t-shirt. You don't need no stinking logo or name or anything on your t-shirt, sir.
Well, welcome back. Glad you're back. And no, I don't. I'm still waiting for the salespeople to sell this area.
Yes.
Right here in my chest and around my man boobs.
This area for sale. Yes, and you and I talked, and I was fortunate enough, and I said this to Shannon and to Andy when I did a segment with him on Monday. My friend Steve, and Steve is joining us now on Facebook Live. Steve and I went to the Pro Football Hall of Fame game and the enshrinement ceremonies and all the other festivities that went on over the weekend. Our good friend James Allen, who is on the board of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, was an outstanding host, was very, very giving and thoughtful and kind and helpful in getting us to where things were. And Dave, as I told you, I had a few moments with, and we got a photo with Roger Worley, longtime legendary St. Louis Cardinals defensive back from the 70s. And I got a photo of his bust for you. I didn't send that to you yet.
Oh, very cool.
The busts, you go through that room, Dave and Shannon, again, you always see those things on TV and, you kind of know what they look like, but the feeling is a little bit different when you're in that room with those busts at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And the way they light them underneath each bust is a strong white light that lights them from below, which kind of, for whatever the reason, it's kind of dark in there. It kind of gives everything more of a surreal look. So, especially when you're looking into the eyes of a player or a coach who has since passed away. And, the one bust I really wanted to see was Tom Landry. And same for Bob Hayes, former Cowboy wide receiver who has also passed away. But I mean, these busts are so lifelike, and there you are face to face looking into the eyes of Tom Landry, and the lighting in there is, just a kind of like dreamlike and surreal. It's hard to explain. It's an odd experience, but it was very, very interesting, and I do recommend it.
Did you get a chance to look at the new bus? They have those at some point?
They brought them in the very next day. So after like Jimmy Johnson, Cliff Harris, and the class of 2021, the class of 2020, we were in there the next day, right before the 2021 enshrinements. So we were able to see Jimmy Johnson, Cliff Harris, and everybody who went in the first day. Sure. But it was interesting. Right next to them, you had empty spaces, but you had the name. You could see where Drew Pearson was going to go. You could see where Peyton Manning was going to go. And they do it by the next day when they open the next day. So, the class of 2021 went in on Sunday. So by Monday, whenever they opened up, I'm sure those busts were there and ready for viewing. And of course, our friend Drew Pearson, Shannon, with the afro, and some people are saying, and I do believe, I didn't see any other afros on the busts when I toured all the other busts. Apparently the first afro in the Pro Football Hall of Fame to be, in the bronze, in the bust.
He's a man of firsts. That's for sure. And the afro, that's just another one for him with the bust. Now, Peyton Manning, I did not think his looked like himself, like the furrowed brow or whatever with the nose. It looked very strange. I know he has generally a plain face, right? He doesn't have that feature like the afro or Troy Polamalu and his long flowing locks. But for a guy who's got a pretty basic face, it shouldn't be that hard. And now I'm seeing other people agreeing with me in articles today coming out about how bad his bust is. Are we going to get a redo for Peyton? Is this like a Cristiano Ronaldo airport bust mishap where I mean, when you're the best of the best, you deserve to have something that actually looks like you.
I agree. And, and the vast majority, of the busts of players that I was familiar with looked like them.
Yeah.
But there are a couple you go, well, I'm not, I get it, but I don't get it. But I would say 80% of them look dead on. But I agree with you. Peyton Manning's was odd. And yes, especially if now in the era of social media, enough people, and especially if like reporters, NFL reporters, and people who are credible look at it and go, "I don't think so." And especially if that player himself says, "Can I have a do-over?" Then I think the Hall should accommodate that.
He just looks mad in it.
Yes.
Like when you think of Peyton Manning, I just don't. I'm like, was he on a phone call that upset him while they were like had him sitting there? I don't know. It'll be interesting to see if he actually says something, because he's not really one to say stuff. I also, because we know we're gonna get him, those nationwide commercials. Let's bring the bust in. Let's have the bust now be like Peyton calls, he can't make it, so his bust is there with Brad Paisley.
Chris,
should do their commercials.
Did you get to meet Troy Polamalu and touch his hair?
I did not get to. I passed by him, but I didn't get a chance to touch
That hair
his
is
hair.
insured.
Yeah, it's like $1 million or something.
Well, and he didn't show up until there was a COVID issue.
Yeah, he had COVID.
So the night of the gold jacket ceremony, when everybody got their gold jacket, Troy Polamalu was not there. So there was concern at that point, because so many Steeler fans were wearing their Polamalu jerseys. There was some concern about whether he would make it, and indeed he did. But you got to love that guy's hair. All right, we're up against a break here. Just if you want to jump in, you're welcome all morning long on the phone lines. You want to talk Hard Knocks, NFL football, we'll get into Major League Baseball. The Astros find themselves in a race with the Oakland A's after kind of floundering for the last week. Both teams won last night. Phone number, if you want to join us on the phone line, is 800-707-9760, 800-707-9760. In the next hour, Shannon's Salty Shakedown, sports history and sports birthdays. Early in the 8 o'clock hour, Bill Schoening, our first time to talk with Bill since Team USA took Olympic gold in men's basketball. We'll talk about that, the NBA, and a whole lot more. Dave Ayler, your soundscape stylist. She is Shannon Salty Sweeney. I'm Chris. We're with you till 9. Thanks for hanging out with us on the Chris Duel Show. All right. Beth Settle, good morning. Steve DeRocco, Jason Paniagua, Rudy, Barney Segura. Oh, that's loud. Tracy Bogert, president of the Bexar County MAGA Republicans and coronavirus deniers. Good to see you. Anthony Del Toro, Luisa Alanis, Hector Gomez, Brad George. Hey, Brad George, joining us from Australia. Welcome in, Brad. I'm going to try to tweak this camera that was rudely moved. It ain't easy to tweak. I'll tell you that. That might work, actually. All right. I'm going to run and get coffee if I have time. Thank you for that, Tracy. I wasn't aware of that yet. So you get a credit for producing the show this morning. Yeah, it has been a while. Brad George, welcome in, man. I did not see Brady up close, Louisa. I saw him from a distance. But it was cool that he was there for Peyton. They booed him loudly. The fans were mostly Pittsburgh Steeler fans because Pittsburgh's about 80 miles away. So Tom Brady was booed quite loudly, which I thought was a bit rude. All right. Michelle Johnson, good morning from Marysville, Kansas. The camera's not in an idea. Wow. Ooh, and I moved that around and that moves the camera. That's not good. All right. Let me see if I can tweak that to get that bar out of there like that. Okay, so I need to go a little in that direction. We have to tweak it again. I'm out of time for this. for this segment.
Chris, when you were at the Pittsburgh airport, did you see the Immaculate Reception statue?
I did. Yeah, I'll have to. We shot a little video with it, and my friend Steve said to Franco Harris, "I hate you." So yeah, that's a great statue. I mean, life size. I mean, very. Have you seen it in person? Oh my God, you've got to see. As a fan, you'll love it. It's life size. It looks like Franco. Yeah, I'll find that video and I'll send it to you. Jason Paniagua, welcome in. Yeah, it's weird. Tracy, I'm trying to click on that link. Maybe I'll have to do it from here. Wow, okay. All right, I don't know how that happened, Shannon. Okay, I somehow put Tracy's comment on there. Here we go. Welcome back. It is the Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney, Dave Ayler, your soundscape stylist, spinning the tunes, submitting them for your approval on this Wednesday, August 11th, basking in the glow of the football blessing that was bestowed upon us last night at 9:00 and forevermore on demand. Hard Knocks featuring the Dallas Cowboys. Episode 1 dropped last night at 9. There was no way I was going to be able to sleep. Shannon, you were very sensible. And I mean, I didn't even think about that. I didn't even think, I could go to sleep at a reasonable hour, then I could just wake up and watch it in the morning. I didn't think to do that. You were smart. Obviously, I was not.
I mean, it was a very much a last minute. I was going to watch it in bed just so that I could go to sleep immediately after. And
Yeah.
I was like, wait a minute, I already get up early to do things around my house and get some work done before I even leave. I have plenty of time to just watch it then. So I did that.
Very cool.
I feel better. I feel good about myself this morning.
And there was another, and when I talked to you and Andy on the phone from Canton, Shannon, one of the things that I talked to you guys about, the two things that really struck me in that Hall of Fame game between the Cowboys and the Steelers. Number one, Ben DiNucci looked lost and out of his element and does not look like he has any hope of being a contributor at quarterback to the Dallas Cowboys anytime soon. And I, turned to my friend Steve and I said, he is not long for this world, meaning the Cowboys. The other takeaway that I had, the plays that I saw Micah Parsons out there, he flew to the ball, he recovered a fumble, he was making tackles. And what struck me even more than all of that, he seemed to be a leader in the huddle.
Mhm.
He seemed to be, like Mike Singletary of the Bears when he was running that huddle back in the day. And so last night on Hard Knocks, and for anybody who's going to see it, and this, we're not giving anything away here, really. I mean, you get a really good taste. They had him mic'd, and they had the cameras on Micah Parsons in that Hall of Fame game. In fact, it's kind of funny, when he's done with his allotment of plays, defensive coordinator Dan Quinn calls him from up in the booth in the press box, or where the coaches are anyway, and says, "That's it, you're done." And Micah Parsons says, "Oh, come on, coach, put me in, coach. I'm ready to play." I mean, he wanted to keep going. Yep. And Dan Quinn said, "I want you to also, but that's it. You're done. That's it." But I really, if that first game is any indicator, and I know it's a small sample size, but you look at where he was drafted, you look at who he was at Penn State. I really believe Micah Parsons is going to be a special player for the Dallas Cowboys.
He's got this lion thing going on. He refers to himself as a lion, and you're right. He's got this confidence about him, but it's not arrogance. It's not like it's, oh, who's this rookie coming in thinking he's a big shot or a big player on this team. He knows that he's good at his job, and he clearly loves what he does. And I think that just shines through and makes him a better football player for us. So I'm very excited to have him on the defensive side of the ball for Dallas, because as we know, struggled in that area just a smidgen last season.
But man, if Dan Quinn can just, again, we're just hoping to go from god awful to mediocre or average. If he can work some of that Dan Quinn magic, and certainly Micah Parsons is going to help. That's a big upgrade. It'll be a lot of fun. All right, we do this every morning at this time because we should. Because we like giving out high fives, and it's the right thing to do. And it's nice to find out in the previous 24 hours who has earned a high five. We call it the high five play of the day, appropriately sponsored by High Five, 2 locations in the Austin area with so much to do when you go to a high five. There's games, laser tag, axe throwing, big screen TVs everywhere. I'm sure they'll probably have Hard Knocks on at some point today. But all the events, you can watch Austin FC games. You can watch NFL preseason games, baseball. And now we suddenly have a race between the Astros and the A's. Hard Knocks, High Five, 2 locations in Austin. And speaking of the Dallas Cowboys, Shannon, they are the subject of our high five this morning.
Yes, because we love us some Dallas Cowboys, and they love to do great things for their community and those that support their community. So yesterday in Oxnard, it was Dallas Cowboys Heroes Appreciation Day. So they closed down practice to the general public and had over 1,000 military members, first responders, and medical staff that were able to attend practice. It was kind of like a mock game walkthrough that they got to watch. I'm sure they got up and close and personal as much as they could, at least with the COVID stuff still going on with these players, and some good once in a lifetime interactions. I love this, not just obviously the fact that they're giving heroes access like this that they may not otherwise get, but when you think about those people, military, first responders, medical staff, they don't have your typical 9-to-5s and your weekends off. They are working odd hours, they work odd days, sometimes they're gone for long stretches of times. And they, just like people like you and I, Chris, who have a little bit more stable hours and don't work weekends, they love their teams just as much as we do, but they don't always get those Sundays or those Monday nights off to watch their team. So for some of them, they may miss most of the season, unfortunately, because of their job that they sacrifice for the greater good of their community and to help others. And so it's great that the Cowboys have done this. I think this is something they do typically every year during camp, obviously not last year, but now that they're back out in Oxnard, they were able to do that yesterday. So fantastic job, and high five to that Dallas Cowboys organization.
Yeah,
and to
I love
all those
it.
people who showed up. I mean, obviously, military members, first responders, medical staff.
Very cool. Yeah, I love it. Big high five. Absolutely agree. And, you cannot honor the military nearly enough. It should be done often, and as often as you can think about it, whatever your organization is, in this case, the Dallas Cowboys. But, now as well, in addition to the military, as you mentioned, Shannon, in the aftermath, or excuse me, the continuation of the pandemic, now with the Delta variant, first responders and the medical community now, I remember after 9/11 when we saw so many firefighters rush into those twin towers with just not even a second thought. It's like, we have a job to do. There are lives in there we're going to try to save. Let's go. And they went rushing in and up the stairs and doing what they could to save lives. And many of them therefore lost their lives. In the aftermath of 9/11, I think we all developed a better appreciation for firefighters and first responders. Now as we go through this pandemic, I think, doctors, nurses, anybody, people who work in assisted living facilities, on any level, even the people who work in hospitals, certainly, who are not necessarily doctors or nurses, just support crew who work in hospitals, just so amazing. And they have been, first, on that first wave of people helping other people and therefore putting themselves at risk. So Cowboys did it yesterday. Hopefully more and more teams and more organizations, even outside of sports, take the time to honor heroes, and high five to the Cowboys for doing that yesterday.
Yes, absolutely. And, you mentioned all of those jobs. I think of HEB members now as first responders. I mean, those guys, and I've never had a bad interaction with anyone who works at HEB. I mean, they're chatty in all the right ways. I don't feel bad ever about going in and just buying a slice of cake, because they always tell me, oh my gosh, that one's my favorite. I do the exact same thing. And I'm hearing now Austin Public Health has partnered with HEB that if you go and get your vaccine and you take an exit survey, you get a $50 HEB gift card. And if you show up for that second vaccine, you do another exit survey, you get another $50 gift card. So HEB is leading the push in getting people vaccinated. My only nitpick moment of that is I got my vaccine at HEB when it was available. Did that on my own accord, and I would like free HEB Buddy Bucks, please.
That would be nice. And I want to underscore what you said, because even at the height of the pandemic, when there was a run on toilet paper and people, customers in HEB were downright rude. You are so right. I have never had a bad encounter with an HEB employee, and I do the math. You were talking about HEB people being heroes at the height of the pandemic. If you do the math, of every 10 people an HEB employee encounters, and they encounter a lot more than 10 every day, but I'll bet you 2 or 3, certainly at the height of the pandemic. And oh, by the way, we're starting to reach another height. 2 or 3 of them probably are carrying the coronavirus. So, the HEB employees with their masks and, doing their best to stay safe, they're having to deal with a lot of the entire population of people who shop at HEB. And certainly there is a number, maybe it's 2 out of 10, maybe it's less, maybe it's more, but it's a significant number daily that HEB employees and people in other businesses certainly, but HEB comes to mind because it's a shared experience that most of us have shopping in an HEB. They're dealing with those people day in and day out. So amen, Shannon. God bless the HEB employees.
They're also one of the few places who first, and I think they still continue to do it, where, because you need food, right? You don't necessarily need the toilet paper as much as you think you do.
I need toilet paper.
But you need the food, and so they have masks for you. They are cleaning, the carts, and they have extra cleaner and hand sanitizer, and they are there to assist you and make sure that you are as safe as you can possibly be going into an HEB, so that you can get those items you need, even if it is toilet paper. But no one needs that much toilet paper. I still can't believe that happened.
It's just something I never want to run out of, though. That's not a good
Chapter 1 of 2020.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. All right. Toilet paper. We have to talk about, we got a few minutes left here in this segment, and I'm sure we'll get into it later today. And it is the subject of our poll question, because it is a poll. It's the preseason coaches poll in college football. The number 1 team, not a lot of surprises. Alabama, overwhelmingly number 1. But I do find it interesting, teams we talk a lot about. Certainly in the Big 12, Oklahoma in at number 3, Texas and we'll talk a lot about this at number 19, Texas A&M at number 6. And the ranking of the Texas Longhorns at number 19, Shannon, is the topic of today's poll question.
Yeah. So with that ranking, number 19 in the preseason football coaches poll, we're asking how you feel about it. Is it about right, too high, or too low? Right now, 75% saying it's about right. I kind of agree. I think they're good enough to be ranked, but there's been so many years lately where I think we've been ranked a little too high, given where we came off of or where it kind of looks like we're headed. I think 19 is about right because Texas should do some damage, but there is a lot of unknown at the quarterback position as well as with the new coaching staff. So I feel good about 19. I think it's nice. Again, it's nice to be nominated. It's nice to have that ranking by your team when you're watching games being played on television, but it's not too high to where people are going to start calling you overrated. Even though you did send me an article yesterday where someone said overrated.
Yeah.
I don't know. Texas is one of the all-time winningest programs ever. So it's hard to say they're ever overrated if you give them that benefit of the doubt.
True. To me, Texas feels more like a number 15 team at the moment. So I think they're slightly, I think 19 is slightly, if not remove the slightly, I think 19 is too low for Texas. I think Texas should be at 15 or in the top 15. And of course, my frame of reference, because I pay a lot of attention to them, is USC, my school. They're number 14. Now, the things to me, Texas is easily on a par with or better than USC at this point, and USC is ranked at 14 by the coaches, Texas at 19. But the two things you bring up, number one, question mark at quarterback. There's going to be a new quarterback this year, whereas USC has Keaton Slovis, and some people are calling him a Heisman candidate, and I found him very impressive last year as the USC quarterback. But you also mentioned the new coach at Texas. However, when it's Steve Sarkisian coming from Alabama and the SEC, and the fact that this guy has coached at Washington and at USC. I mean, yes, that is a coaching change, but I don't think it's a coaching mystery. I think that's clearly, no matter what, he's a big time major coach, and I would be a bit surprised if, in this case, a coaches poll took a few points away from Texas with him as your new coach.
Yeah. I always find these interesting too, because you look at some of these teams, and like Texas's strength of schedule, I think, is ranked 11th. And so you think, okay, well, if we lose to so-and-so because we're already at 19, is that going to push us back? But wait, it was OU and they're number 3. So why should we go as far back when, someone can easily, like an Alabama or A&M, who, A&M loves to schedule cupcakes outside of their regular season in, SEC teams, and they go and beat the crap out of them. And it's like, yeah, anybody could do that. I could do it with my eyes closed.
Mm-hmm.
So those are always interesting to take in as well when looking at these initial rankings heading into the season.
Yeah, I wish people who vote in these polls as the season progresses, when you take on a cupcake, even if you beat them 59-3, you should be penalized in the rankings for playing a cupcake, I think.
And that's my thought about going into the SEC, if everyone's saying it's not going to be like the Big 12. Texas has been setting up their schedule to be as tough as possible outside of, the commitments they'd already made by playing the LSUs, by playing the USCs, by scheduling Alabamas and the Georgias. They'll be fine.
Yeah, absolutely. Just, same thing. They said that about A&M, and, they had Manziel happen, and they went and beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa. So, yeah, I think they're going to be fine too.
Data.
There you go. Quick break. Sports update at the top of the hour. Lots to get into. She's Shannon, Salty Sweeney, Dave Ayler making the show go. I'm Chris, with you till 9 on the Chris Duel Show. I'm going to try tweaking this camera one more time because I'm not liking it yet. You're just joining us. I came in here and this camera was somewhere else. Thanks to Calvin Casey, and I understand he's got to put the camera where he needs it. But okay, this is going to be closer to me, which is going to be frightening for you. But yeah, that's a little better. Oh, wow, when I do that, that even moves it. Okay. Yeah, we'll make that work. Good enough for government work, I say. Good morning, Carl Fisher. Thank you, Hector Gomez. Hector thinks Steve Duraco is funny. Steve Duraco is funny. Jorge, welcome in. Yes, the Astros need to keep winning for the love of God. God, can you imagine with all the haters if they found a way to miss the postseason and lose the AL West to the Oakland A's? That would be horrible. That would be horrible. Yeah, I think as of yesterday, they were 4-6 over their previous 10. Then they won last night, but so did Oakland. So over the last 11, the Astros are 5-6. Sub 500. No bueno. Good morning, Jared Taylor. Thank you, sir. I'll be back in 90 seconds. I'm going to heat up some coffee. All right. I need to do. Let's see what's happening. What I'm going to do is this. Jason Garcia, I would love to tailgate at an SAFC home game. I had done that long ago with the Scorpions, and there's my Scorpions hat, with the Crocketeers and others back in the day. But yeah, I'll have to check their schedule. That would be cool. Next one is next Saturday. All right, let me look, Jason, and see if I can swing that. I appreciate the offer. Be fun to hang out with you. I know our good friend Dylan Emery, the blue-collar sports dad, hangs out at pretty much every SAFC game, I do believe. I get Dylan back on. They had me on their show on Sunday. Dylan and Terrell Huff. We got to get Dylan and Terrell back on this one at some point soon. They're really good. You're a Crocketeer, along with Mission City Firm and 210 Alliance. You're like a triple threat, Jason Garcia. You're in all the supporters groups. Here we go.
Now, Chris Duel.
You made it to the midpoint of the week. Congratulations. And, we start the weekend here on Thursdays just because Shannon and I say we can, so we do. So welcome in. It is the Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney. A little bit later this hour, just after the bottom of the hour, Shannon's Salty Shakedown. Always entertaining, informative, enlightening, and salty. Extra salty on some mornings. Probably is today. So that's coming up a little bit later this hour, just after the bottom. This day in sports history, sports birthdays. Don't forget, 1 hour from now, less than 1 hour from now, the voice of the San Antonio Spurs and longtime voice of the Texas Longhorns before that, Bill Schoening, who has been kind enough to be he's been our NBA playoffs, our NBA finals, our Olympic basketball analyst. He's done it all with us. It'll be our first chance to talk with Bill since Team USA won Olympic gold over the weekend, which was a beautiful thing. And Shannon, again, I talked to you and Andy about this on Monday, and we'll talk with Bill about it. I'm just so happy for Coach Greg Popovich. As many, and there are people, and Andy outlined the reasons why people may not like Coach Pop, but here is a guy who has been much maligned. I sound like Chris Collinsworth. Now here's a guy who is much maligned, certainly by some members of the media, certainly by some Spurs fans who are well, on one level, there's Spurs fans who are angry about his politics or some of the things he says that are not basketball related. Then there's the ignorant fans who go, "Oh, the game has passed him by. Time for another coach." Yeah, like Hall of Fame coaches grow on trees, and for him to be dismissed and diminished and second guessed. And as I mentioned to you, Shannon, there was this guy, and I retweeted it and said this didn't age well. A columnist in USA Today after Team USA's first loss to France in the Olympics, who says, Pop's not doing anything for this team, and I don't foresee him doing anything to lead this team to victory. Good for Greg Popovich in his 70s to get the win. And it's kind of a bookends win, as we've discussed over the last few months. He tried out for the Olympics in 1972 as a player, having just recently graduated from the Air Force Academy. He was one of the final cuts for that Olympic team by Bobby Knight, who was the Indiana coach at the time, but also coached Team USA. It was Doug Collins, who went on to have a very good NBA career with the Philadelphia 76ers and then become an NBA coach. At one time, Doug Collins coached the Chicago Bulls very early in the career of one Michael Jordan, but Doug Collins. So for Pop, who didn't make that Olympic team, he wanted clearly to be on that Olympic team. Full circle, many, many, many years later, to coach Team USA to the Olympics in basketball and win the gold. I just think it's so cool. And I know you're a huge, clearly as a Longhorn fan, I know you like Kevin Durant, a Longhorn alum. Shannon, there's a great photo I saw out there shortly after the game of just Pop and Kevin Durant kind of just hugging each other and looking into each other's eyes. And it's just, I'm so happy for Pop. I'm happy for Team USA. I'm happy for the USA for getting that gold. I thought it was great.
Yeah, happy they got gold as kind of expected with each Olympics. But let's get one thing straight. If it wasn't Pop coaching, they probably would not have even made it to that gold medal game. Because it's not like they won any of those games, specifically that last game against France, handedly, right? There was a point where it kind of started to seem like it was going to be a repeat of the first game, right? Where they kind of had it, and then they let France squeak back in there. A guy like Pop sees the mistakes and is able to coach to make the difference and to get guys in that hodgepodge group of guys, with guys coming in after the games had really started. And you got a guy like Kevin Durant who's got beef with another guy on the team when Kevin Durant is clearly and by far and away the leader and the best player on that team. So if you don't have Pop there, I don't think that they end up with gold at these games. The only disappointing thing for me with Pop, yes, they won gold, but he doesn't get a gold medal, and he would have gotten a medal had he actually been on a roster.
Yeah,
back in the day.
That is true. Technically, he does not get the gold, but
only goes on the resume.
Yeah, but I do love that a number of the players put their gold medal around his neck. You know, very symbolically saying what you just outlined, Shannon, that this guy was a huge part, strategy-wise, of why we did what we did. So anyway, we'll talk more Olympic basketball, and we'll get into some NBA basketball. My goodness, so many moves around the NBA going on. It's hard to keep track of everything, but Bill Schoening will be joining us. I see we're getting a phone call, Shannon. We take your phone calls. We love getting your phone calls at 800-707-9760. On the phone line, our good friend Wes Perkins. Good morning, Wes. How are you doing this morning?
Hey, good morning, Chris. Welcome back from the Hall of Fame. That's awesome. I hope you enjoyed that time. Good morning, Shannon. Good morning, Dave. Hopefully everybody's doing well this morning.
Yeah, Wes, how are you? What's on your mind this morning?
Well, you know, I hear y'all talking about the Olympics, and I wanted to point this out because I agree with what Shannon said just a moment ago about I don't think that this team gets to the gold medal round if not for Greg Popovich. You know, I'm very, very much on board with Greg Popovich and the Spurs. And even though sometimes I get in my own mind, well, they didn't do this right or they didn't do that right. You know, he's the GOAT, and he deserves that respect because he's a winner. I will say this, and this is something that kind of irks me a little bit, is that, you know, when Team USA basketball starts losing a few preseason games and then goes in and loses one game in full play, everybody just throws the, you know, Pop and the team to the wolves. How about the fact that other Olympic sports and other things like our 4x100 relay didn't even qualify for our finals? How about that? How about the fact that other teams who've had things together for long periods of time, like basketball, but also in other track and field events, but they don't get maligned like that? What do you guys say about that?
Well, Wes, you may make a great point about this. When they did lose to France in that first game, pretty much the consensus on social media and among some columnists was it's Pop's fault. It must be Pop. Blame Pop. And now that they win the darn gold, and I appreciate, and for our listeners, Wes Perkins is also a big time contributor to a few Spurs podcasts and video podcasts. We've had him in studio for Spurs React over on 1200 WOAI. So Wes clearly pays close attention and knows his hoops. But I wish more people, now that they won the gold, Wes, would do what Shannon and you are now doing and saying, you know, maybe they don't win that gold, or probably they don't win that gold without Greg Popovich. I think I totally agree with that. I think you make a great point.
I understand the argument, and I think there is some validity to it. However, I would say outside of the Olympics, who's watching track? No one's going to make a stink about track the way they're going to make a stink about basketball that they watch year in and year out. Their household names or names that they know. They love to hate to love throughout the year, every year. And track, I wouldn't say we come in with the expectation every Olympics that we should be in the finals and that we should place in the finals. And again, like basketball too, a lot of people love to sit on their couch and reminisce of when they used to play pickup games in high school, or whether or not they actually put on a jersey in high school. And, they sit there and, someone misses a three. How could you miss? I could make that. I could have done that in my sleep. How are you missing free throws? My grandmama could shoot. But then you watch someone run. You're like, I mean, I can understand how they can drop the baton, because they're sweaty and it's slippery and that looks really hard. Like, look how fast they're running. Like, people end up making these excuses based on their own lives and how they. And so again, just with track not being much of a thing in the US except once every 4 years, I know it's big in like that community. I'm not trying to knock anyone who's into track or anything, but I think basketball people have an easier go at being the armchair coaches that they are.
Mr. Jenner, let me throw this at you, and y'all can debate and tell me what you think about this. I have a feeling that the USA basketball is in for a lot of the same type of thing. They're going to have the tooth and claw going forward because, the international game is such a team game. The national teams, they, grow with each other. They become very tight-knit. You saw a guy like Patty Mills and what he's accomplished in this Olympics. But the USA doesn't really know until they get into a camp and select out of players from a pool. I have a feeling and suspicion that as the world has caught up to the U.S. in basketball, we're not going to ever see the U.S. dominate like it once did. Thanks, guys, for all y'all do, and I'll talk to y'all soon, okay?
All right, Wes Perkins, thanks for the call. And if you want to jump in like Wes did anytime this morning, except for when we have Bill Schoening, unless you have a question specifically for Bill, we would probably bring you on for that. But you can call us like Wes just did at 800-707-9760. Now, Shannon, back to the final thought that Wes left us with on the phone. I agree with him. Every year, the international teams get better. Mm-hmm. And you looked at this French team, with Rudy Gobert, with a number of NBA athletes on it. I mean, as much as you guys say, Greg, maybe we don't win this gold without Greg Popovich. I think clearly we don't win this gold without Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant took over in the game against France and in multiple games that after game number 1 against France, which they lost, every game was a must win. You had to win to get out of, to qualify coming out of group play. Then you got out of group play and it was the knockout rounds. There was zero margin for error after the first loss. You take Kevin Durant off this roster, Shannon, and as much as I love Coach Greg Popovich, maybe, and I think probably you don't win the gold this time around. So I think every 4 years, and I agree with Wes, international teams get better. They've got more NBA players on them. They have the advantage of playing together and keeping that team intact throughout international play. So yeah, it's going to be a tough road for Steve Kerr or whoever is the coach 3 years from now when they have another Olympic go at this.
Yeah, and I know for Americans and people who root for Team USA, like it's a hard pill to swallow to not be able to come into everything and just expect to win. But it's great for the overall game. It's great for the NBA, right? We're and it's great for the Olympics, right? I mean, now we're watching Australia versus France play and these other teams play because we know players that we watch throughout the regular season of the NBA. The same thing is happening, in women's soccer. It's not Team USA who, obviously they won a bronze this year. It's not Team USA who's just like the big bad wolf coming and blowing everybody over. They're, because of the NWSL and its growth and their culture and really bringing others in from around the world who want to come in and play and compete at a high level and make a living off of it. I mean, that is all breeding success elsewhere in the world when these players then go back and play with the countries that they're from. So overall, it's great for the game. But you're right, Team USA. It's a bit of a heat check.
Yeah, we'll talk a lot more basketball, not just the Olympics, but the NBA. And this upcoming season, heck, I think October 4th is the first preseason games get underway.
It's too soon. LeBron won't have it. He's going to need you to push that back.
Yeah, and we already know Kawhi, wants us to push that back. So that will be an interesting topic. Shifting gears back to the NFL, Shannon, you had this in the show notes. Sam Ellinger We've got a cutout of Sam Ellinger in the studio. You can see it on video whenever we position the cameras that way. He's one of our favorites. A rookie now with the Indianapolis Colts, coming out of the great University of Texas. Sam Ellinger getting some first-team reps. That's a pretty cool thing, and this is something that you and I talked about, and you predicted as soon as Carson Wentz went down, this would be a big opportunity for Sam Ellinger to show what he's got, and the time is now for Sam Ellinger to turn some heads in training camp.
Yeah, huge opportunity, and obviously when your starting man goes down, you've got to prepare, and the best way to do that is to get guys comfortable with each other. And so Sam getting some reps with the ones, I'm sure we will see him sometime this weekend, if not throughout the preseason. Interesting to note, though, yesterday was also the first day Carson was back out at practice. He wasn't doing anything, but he was there, and he wasn't wearing a boot. He's 8 days removed from his surgery. And there was a conversation of, with his injury, it could be anywhere from 5 to 12 weeks. And you don't want to rush it. It's not something you want to rush. You don't want to get him in there and then it all goes wrong and he can't finish out the rest of the season. This feels like it's being rushed right now when you show up without a boot 8 days after your surgery and you're standing on it for a couple hours worth of practice.
Yeah. And, Carson Wentz, obviously, Shannon, he wants to demonstrate to the football world, to former Eagles players and fans, that he's got the goods. And he saw what happened last time he had a major injury in Philadelphia. Nick Foles wound up getting the Super Bowl glory and a statue that I'm sure Carson Wentz believes is his. So, yeah, we're going to dive back into the NFL in a second. I see we're getting a phone call, Shannon, from Greg, who wants to talk Olympics, and we take your phone calls as they come in at 800-707-9760. Greg, what's on your mind about the Olympics?
Yeah, man, just kind of going back off of what Wes was saying about like how USA is going to have, it's going to be tougher and tougher for them because the other countries are getting better and better at basketball. They play more and more together. But like, would you say? So obviously the USA Olympic team didn't have a full caliber roster like they did, back in, the golden age, so to speak, Jordan era and the Dream Team and stuff like that. Had they would have had a full all-star roster, would they even have lost the game?
Probably not. I would say no, because a guy like LeBron, he's going to play all 4 quarters and make sure that they finish that game out. I mean, they just didn't finish against France in that first round pool play. So I don't, but again, who knows if we'll ever get another dream team like setup ever again with guys, and they're, the guys are older now. I don't know if, there's going to be a younger generation of a dream team. Obviously, Trae Young really wanted to be a part of this Olympics. I would be surprised if he wasn't on the team the next go round. So there are guys that are becoming, the next household names that do want to play and do want to contribute and have a legacy like Kevin Durant has turned into. And I'm sure Kevin Durant will be back, but I don't know if we'll ever get, the Currys and the LeBrons back on the Team USA.
Right, and then just with the way that basketball is changing, I mean, it's going to be something, that's for sure. And I can't wait, next 3 years, see what they're going to bring, and hopefully they go undefeated and bring back another gold medal. Chris Shannon, I appreciate you taking my call. Y'all have a wonderful day, and we'll talk to y'all soon.
All right, Greg, thanks for calling in, man. Anytime. Once again, phone number 800-707-9760. And before we go back to the NFL, Shannon, just staying on the Olympic basketball for a moment, and I had this conversation with you and Andy on Monday. I am so disappointed in NBA players, and I understand, and certainly LeBron James at age 36, and he was already complaining about the length of the season and how close this season was to last year when they went to the finals. All right, I'll let LeBron, plus he had his movie, still a little patriotism would be nice.
Was already made.
But yeah, bingo, there you go. It is such an honor, and I brought up Manu Ginobili to you and to Andy on Monday. Guys like Manu and pretty much every other international guy, like the Gasol brothers for Spain, like Patty Mills for Australia, they know what an honor it is to represent your country. And Manu said, and I get it, his winning a gold medal for Argentina meant much more to him than any of his NBA championships. And that in no way diminishes his love for the Spurs and his love for winning championships with the Spurs. But they get what an honor it is. And somewhere along the way, and I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the parents of today's NBA players. I don't know if it's just their peers, the cynicism that is on social media, the egos, the it's all about me and I want my money and you're not paying me to go to the Olympics and I'm going to worry about keeping my body perfectly in shape so I can make more money, as opposed to the honor that clearly Kevin Durant understands. Is this 3 or 4 in a row for Kevin Durant? It's either 3 or 4. It's something amazing. Yeah. As much as I have criticized Kevin Durant ever since he left Oklahoma City to go to the Warriors, and I thought he was gravy training to win a ring, I gotta credit him here. I mean, he didn't need to do this. He doesn't need to do it every go round, but he does. He was the most valuable player of this Olympic run, and I think it means a lot to play for your country and to compete for your country and to try to win a gold for your country. And to Greg's point, if everybody played, if Russell Westbrook would have played, if James Harden would have played, if Steph Curry would have played, and those guys were on this team, we shouldn't have lost a game. Yeah. But this is the way it is now, and it's going to get tougher every year.
And Olympians, if they medal, do get paid, and the pay actually doubled from what was the 2016 Rio Summer Olympics to this last round. So they do get paid. Obviously, it's nowhere near what they make playing the regular season of the NBA. But if you truly love the game, why would you not? I mean, if you're all about, I want to win a championship, why would you not do that? That's arguably a world championship compared to the NBA, which some make with all the other leagues around the world would argue that that's not a world championship.
Yeah.
Take it or leave it. But if you truly love the game, it is a lot to, I mean, I can't imagine a young LeBron coming into the league for his first year, wanting to take over, wanting to be the king that he would, I guess, sort of kind of become, would think of himself now sitting this out. And possibly, that being his last opportunity to do it, as he will be, I guess, 39 come the Paris Games in 2024. I think he'd be disappointed at himself.
Yeah, unless at age 39 he's on the U.S. Olympic team with Bronny, his son. Who at that point, what's Bronny now? 16, 17? Bronny might be 20.
I can't handle it.
Just saying.
I can't handle it.
Wonder what if Bronny becomes a Dallas Maverick and goes to your team, or what if Bronny becomes a San Antonio?
Then I'm getting a jersey. What are you
Exactly.
talking about? Biggest fan ever.
It's so funny. It's like Kevin Durant. I generally have not liked him lately, but now it's like, whoa, Kevin, I love you. You just won. You won it for Team USA. So now I got to back off of my anti-Kevin Durant stance. All right, coming up, it is Shannon's Salty Shakedown. We will dive back into the NFL this morning and talk a little more about specifically Mr. Sam Ellinger and the Indianapolis Colts. We didn't go heavy into that. We'll go back to that. We will certainly talk more Hard Knocks. It dropped last night at 9:00. It's on demand now, HBO Max. Hard Knocks featuring the Dallas Cowboys. I give it a 10. If I can go beyond 10, I'd give it an 11. I thought it was outstanding last night. We'll get more into that. Bill Schoening, the voice of the San Antonio Spurs. We'll talk Olympic basketball, NBA basketball, and more with Bill Schoening. In fact, he's a huge Longhorn guy, obviously, as he was a longtime voice of the Longhorns. We'll ask him our poll question, and that is at number 19 in the coaches poll for college football. Is that about right for the Texas Longhorns, or should they be ranked higher or lower? We'll ask Bill Schoening that question as we're asking you on the poll. In addition to the Salty Shakedown coming up next, this day in sports history, sports birthdays, and more. Dave Ayler making the show go. She's the salty one. I'm Chris. It's the Chris Duel Show. Cheryl, good morning. John Williams, good morning. Yeah, Corey Robinson, that whole David's kids are amazing. Amazing dad, amazing family. Okay, I need to mail something. So let's do that. Ooh. Yeah, I wonder, Louisa, you bring up Klay Thompson. I wonder if Klay Thompson would have been eligible to play, back from his injury? I know eligible, but would he have been able to play? Here we go. Welcome back. It's the Chris Duel Show with Shannon, Salty, Sweeney. We've gotten a couple of good phone calls this morning. We always take your phone calls at 800-707-9760. If you're new to the show, we've got a live video feed as well. You can not only interact with us in real time, but you're also interacting with a lot of cool people from actually all over the world, as we saw our good friend Brad George joining us this morning from down under in Australia. So you can get the video feed via Ticket 760's Facebook page, AM 1300 The Zone's Facebook page. There is a YouTube link, which will get you in, a Twitch link, which will get you in. We are all over the place. And as we mentioned, coming up just after the top of the hour, the voice of the San Antonio Spurs and our go-to basketball analyst, the great Bill Schoening, will be joining us. We'll talk not only Olympic and NBA hoops, but we'll also talk some Longhorn football with Bill Schoening as the coaches poll is out. It's also the subject of our poll question. In a moment, you've waited for it. At this midpoint of the week, you shall receive it. Shannon's Salty Shakedown. Before that, sports birthdays and this day in sports history. August 11th, 1919. The Green Bay Packers Football Club was founded on this day in 1919 by George Calhoun and Curly Lambeau. Lambeau Field, get it? Now you know where that came from. It was named after the sponsor, Indian Packing Company. Ooh, it's a good thing they didn't call them the Green Bay Indian Packers. They would have had to change that name to Guardians or something by now. On this day in 1929, Babe Ruth becomes the first professional baseball player to hit 500 home runs. Number 500 off Willis Hudlin of the Cleveland Indians. Who knew? I didn't know. Back on this day in 1971, Harmon Killebrew hits home runs number 500 and number 501. I hope he killed a few brews after those big home runs that day. And finally, on this day in 2013, Usain Bolt of Jamaica records the best time of the year to edge out Justin Gatlin of the USA to win the 100 meter. Bolt ran it in 9.77 seconds at the World Athletics Championships in Moscow. That Usain Bolt, he was pretty quick, and he probably still is to this day. That's this day in sports history. How about some sports birthdays? Got three for you. Born on this day in 1953, the Hulkster, Hulk Hogan. But he was born with the name Terry Bollea. I didn't know that. He was born in Augusta, Georgia. He would later become Hulk Hogan, WWF heavyweight champion from 1984 to 1989. Happy birthday, Hulk Hogan. Born on this day in 1961, a man who would be forever posterized by Michael Jordan, Craig Elo of the Cleveland Cavaliers. He later played for the Atlanta Hawks in a playoff game between the Bulls and the Cavaliers. After Elo hit what looked like a game-winning shot with 3 seconds left, Chicago calls a timeout. Michael Jordan gets the ball. He's guarded by 2 Cleveland Cavaliers, including Craig Elo, pushes off of Elo, hits the game winner. It was a posterizing video viral moment for Michael Jordan. It was known as The Shot. And that man posterized as having a birthday today, Craig Elo. Finally, born on this day in 1988, the former longest tenured San Antonio Spur. Of course, now he moves on to the Brooklyn Nets, but we still love him and always will. Born down under in Australia. Happy birthday, Patty Mills. Patty Mills, born on this day in 1988. And I know Bill Schoening, who joins us just after 8 o'clock, a big fan and friend of Patty Mills. We might get some thoughts about Patty and his moving on to Brooklyn from Bill Schoening coming up. That's your sports birthdays and your sports history. And now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, on a Wednesday. And don't forget, if you're driving, both hands on the wheel, breathe deeply, chant your mantra. Don't drive into a guardrail, because here it is, your Salty Shakedown.
Chris, we're going to have to ask Bill Schoening, the Swiss Army knife of hoops, in my opinion, about Mr. Dennis Schroeder as well, because this guy, listen, they always say to know your worth, right? And to go get what's yours. Know your worth. Don't settle for less.
Yes.
But that sometimes people overvalue themselves a little bit. People think they're a little too highly of themselves, and then they bet on themselves and it doesn't work out. And Dennis Schroeder fits the bill here. Dennis Schroeder, in the middle of the Lakers season, was offered a 4-year, $84 million extension that he denied because he was hoping to get something in the $100 to $120 million range. That's what he thought he was worth. So the season comes to an end. They don't offer him anything else, so now he is a free agent. The Lakers, of course, go out and they grab Melo. They grab Dwight Howard. They grab Russell Westbrook. They grab nearly everybody, and they're paying him pennies on the dollar. They're not having to pay that Dennis Schroeder money. They didn't spend that $84 million. Now let's go share it with other people that want to play for us, that know their worth, that know their place in the league. Dennis Schroeder got very few offers throughout this offseason. And it looks like now, according to Woj, with the Woj bomb, that he will sign with the Boston Celtics for a 1-year, $5.9 million. So he went from a $21 million a year offer to $5.9 million. He loses about $70 million, Chris.
Wow.
More than $70 million, because he thought he was worth more. I don't know who his agent is. I don't know who his mother is, but I think all needed talking to. Listen, I get upset when I lose a $5 bill. I can't imagine losing out on 70, because he bet on himself, Chris. That's what he did. He finished out the season.
Yeah.
And also, you look at that Lakers roster now. I know they're a bunch of old guys, but they're a bunch of old guys who know what they're doing. They have a good chance to make another run and get another championship. So he also misses out on that, as the Celtics are kind of in this rebuilding phase right now. I almost feel bad for the guy, right? And it also, it's like the other extreme of Dak Prescott, right? And last year in 2020, Dak was offered a $175 million contract for 5 years with the Dallas Cowboys, and he declined. He wanted something closer to the $40 million a year range, not the $30 million a year that would have paid him. So he waited and he bet on himself. And yes, he got hurt early on last season, but his numbers were outstanding. He was already making a good case for MVP of the league that year, and it just didn't work out. But he bet on himself and he proved his worth. And now he has that contract, the $160 million for 4 years, paying him with a $5 million a year difference from what he was going to get with that contract that he denied. So it worked out in Dak's case. It worked out great. in Dak's case. Dennis Schroeder, you're no Dak Prescott of the Lakers, okay? You bet way too much on yourself. You thought you were worth 100 and 120 million. Lakers said you're worth 84 million for 4 years. You denied them. You said, no, thanks. I'm going to go get what I think I'm owed. And now you're going to play for 5.9 million next year. Chris?
Wow.
I mean,
and you asked a great question, which is, who is Dennis Schroeder's agent? I mean, we need to, presumably an agent advises. Yeah, the agent advises his client when the Lakers made that offer. If that agent, whoever he or she is, was worth their salt on the Salty Shakedown, they should have said, Dennis, take it. Go on, take the money and run. Ooh, ooh, ooh. He should have taken the money. But man, oh, man, oh, man. And especially, and let's keep an eye on it this season, if the Lakers do break through and win the NBA championship, as you mentioned, you'll be sitting that out as well, Dennis. And imagine, you would have probably gotten more endorsements. It's LA. Yeah, big dropping of the ball on his part.
And they could have ended up trading him away right at the end of the season, but he would have still had that contract.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm so sorry. I don't know if it was complete. I don't know if this is completely on him. I don't know if he's the one that was calling himself the $100 million man, but somebody is to blame in that camp. And it's not a good look. I mean, if last year wasn't a prove it year, he's got to prove it this year. He's only on a 1-year deal. If he wants to hit it big in free agency and make up on some of that money that he's now losing out on, he's got to perform for the Celtics this season. All right, moving on. Mr. Dan Campbell has become the go-to guy for sound bites. He is amazing. Last week, Chris, when you were out, we got a great one. We got his coffee order from Starbucks. He has 2 venti Pike orders and then he puts a shot of espresso in each of them. Venti being the largest size for those that aren't key to the Starbucks lingo, and then Pike being, I believe, the medium roast. But then he goes and he adds an espresso. No wonder he's always so jacked up. No wonder he's coming off the cuff and saying that we need to take people out at the kneecaps. But we got another good one yesterday, Chris. He was talking about his team. He was talking about, he's, coming in after a guy like Matt Patricia, just kind of from the outside perspective, ruined everything. And so we talked about the kind of players he has on his roster here.
There's a number of guys that were here. And I think Patricia and Quinn did a great job of, there's no turds here. There's no bad guys. Like, these guys work now. We don't have guys, I'm lazy, we don't really have those guys. And that's a good thing. That's not always the case when you walk in and hasn't been a successful program. Usually that's not the thing. These guys work, and they're pretty tough-minded. And it's just a matter of, hey, this is how you got to win. This is what it takes to win. This is what it takes to be a winner. This is what it looks like. This is how you walk through. And that's all it is. It's just a matter of, sometimes you don't know what you don't know.
No turds, Chris.
Wow, there's no turds here.
No turds on those Detroit Lions. Could you imagine your boss coming in and be like, why I hired you? You're not a turd. That's why I keep you around.
Woo!
No turds here.
See, that should be a T-shirt in Detroit now.
Right. Forget the one pride hashtag. Yeah. Hashtag no turds.
The baby blue shirt with silver. There's no turds here. It's like there's no crying in baseball. There's no turds here in Detroit. I like it.
This guy is gold. I don't know what their season is going to look like. But no turds. And I don't know if that was supposed to, he mentioned Matt Patricia and, maybe he's giving him kudos of like, well, you had bodies here, but you just didn't do anything with them.
Yeah, sounds like a shot to me.
Yeah, it's not like you didn't have any turds. Why couldn't you get the job done?
Mm-hmm.
This just, again, I Dan Campbell, thank you so much. Thank you, the radio people. Thank you for these glorious sound bites. Keep them coming. I'm sure we will get so many more. Because there's just one right after another. So I thank you for that, Dan Campbell. All right, moving on. Finally, today we move away from sports, or maybe not. Maybe I'll tie it back in. I can typically find a way to do that. Chris, we've got another hard alcohol coming to the market. It'll debut in early 2022. They're expecting February, March release. It is Hard Mountain Dew. Now, Mountain Dew is known for like all the sugars, and it's got way more caffeine than your next best soda as far as caffeine is concerned. That's why a lot of people like to drink it. Myself, when I worked for the Texas State Senate, it was very long hours. It was very boring. I had a coworker who drank it nonstop to try and stay awake, and he ended up in the hospital from being so dehydrated that his muscles were cramping all over his body. I've never tasted Mountain Dew. I don't know what it tastes like. After that, seeing him go through that experience, I don't know that I ever want to taste it. But now they're coming out with a hard Mountain Dew. I'm not sure if it's considered a seltzer or not, but they will have the original flavor: watermelon, black cherry, 5% alcohol. It's no sugar and it's not caffeinated. So is it really Mountain Dew if it doesn't have all that extra stuff in there? Chris, your thoughts on the ever expanding hard alcohol market with these brands that typically aren't either, beer brands or now soda brands are getting into the game? It's a little oversaturated at this point, no?
Yeah, and I've never really gotten the Mountain Dew thing. I had a college roommate who used to guzzle Mountain Dews and loved them. So I know there's people out there. But you bring it up, Shannon, that the market for all these hard alcohol beverages, there's a new one every week. Yep. And I can't keep up with them. I just wonder, it was so much simpler, 20 years ago. You go to a convenience store, you had like
Coke.
4 choices. Yeah, now you got.
Say what kind? You say Dr. Pepper. That's it.
Yeah, you got 37,000 choices now. But
listen, I don't think I'll try. As I said, I've never had Mountain Dew, but it will be interesting. Again, that release date, February and March, and Mountain Dew, along with is pretty much the soda that is also kind of in that energy drink category. You see it a lot at X Games, whether it be the winter or summer. Well, guess what? The Winter Olympics are coming up. They will be taking place in February. I would not be surprised if we get some snowboard shredders pumping for this new drink, this new Mountain Dew, because that I feel like that would be a great endorsement mix for them. But it's too much. It's too much. Give me 4 options, man. It's like the TV channels.
Yeah.
At one point, we need to just stop. And I think we're reaching that limit. There you have it. Today's Salty Shakedown.
Spectacular Salty Shakedown, as always. Dan Campbell was certainly a highlight. He's the gift that keeps on giving. Yeah, and I wonder, you bring up a great point about the hard Mountain Dew, rolling it out in February or March. That would make total sense to make it part of the Winter Olympics. And who better, than a cool snowboarder, to be the pitch person for it. That might. Yeah, I don't even who. I mean, is there, we going into, and I don't know the answer to this question. I'm asking, maybe you do. Simone Biles going, other than Kevin Durant and the basketball team, we kind of knew going into this Summer Olympics, Team USA, Simone Biles would probably be the face of the U.S. Olympic team. I don't know the Winter Games as much. I can't name, maybe there's a skier or something, or a snowboarder, some USA name. Can you name a Winter Olympian? I can't at the moment without Googling. I could Google it, but without Googling, I can't.
Other than Shaun White, I'm trying to remember. I think her name was Chloe. She was a young snowboarder. And now that we're talking about Mountain Dew, I was like, was she 17 or was she 18 at the last Olympics? Either way, that probably put her at 21. So maybe she'd be great as a spokesman for this Mountain Dew campaign. She won a couple medals. But you're right. I think that's where some people fall off and they enjoy the Summer Olympics more. But I love watching sports that I don't typically watch. Anyway, I love the bobsledding. That's always a good laugh.
That's fun.
Especially
the Jamaican bobsled team. I love that. The Jamaicans have it, and they're usually pretty good, which is great.
Yeah, I love it. It's literally all fun and games when it comes to the Olympics. And I'm excited we get more in 6 months.
Speaking of Olympics, we'll talk some Olympics hoops with a man who knows his hoops better than most, Bill Schoening, the voice of the San Antonio Spurs. We'll talk NBA moves, Spurs, Luka Doncic with that big contract, and more. Bill Schoening joins us next. She's Shannon Salty Sweeney, Dave Ayler making the show go. It's the Chris Duel Show. Woo! Dean Stone, good morning. Taro Kotani. We are joined by Taro from Tokyo. Taro joined us on the show and did a magnificent job last time, or when the Olympics began. Yeah, John, I will bring that up to Bill. I mean, certainly, I would imagine Sean Marks was influential in that deal, with or without Spurs ties, just because he was the general manager. So, that would be a big thing of, that would be his deal, a deal he wanted to get done. Okay, so I sent that. That's a good thing. You see what that is. Bill Schoening going to join us here in a few moments. That's him? Cool, man. Thanks. Thank you, Axel J. Miller. Dean Stone enjoys the Winter Olympics more than the summer. Wow, Taro, I just read that. You got Keldon Johnson to sign your jersey at the hotel. Very cool. You are one persistent dude, Taro. Yeah, Foam Foot 420, I agree with you. I thought Hard Knocks was through the roof. I thought it was outstanding. Really enjoyed it last night. Here we go.
This is the Chris Duel Show.
Yeah, it's about time that Tom Flores got in, Axel. I agree with that.
Now, Chris Duel.
It is Wednesday, August 11th. We are midway through the week, and so much going on in the world of sports, including, and we talked about it, we'll probably talk more about it before 9 o'clock. Hard Knocks dropped last night on HBO and HBO Max. Training camp with the Dallas Cowboys, and we are still basking in the glory of U.S. Olympic gold in men's and women's basketball, but certainly that men's team led by Kevin Durant and coached by head coach Greg Popovich, of course, Steve Kerr and other assistants, a big part of that operation. It is our first opportunity to speak with Bill Schoening, the voice of the San Antonio Spurs, who's been kind enough to serve as our Olympic basketball analyst as well. Our first opportunity to speak with Bill since Team USA won Olympic gold in men's basketball. Good morning, Bill Schoening. How you doing today?
A very good morning to you, Chris. Doing very well. Thank you.
Well, and so great to talk to you, Bill. I know you must have felt as I did, and probably many Spurs fans did, when Team USA won, just to see Coach Greg Popovich and knowing his history with the U.S. men's Olympic team not making that 1972 team, all of these years later to coach the team to a gold medal. I was very, very happy for Coach Greg Popovich. Your thoughts on the championship game against France and the overall effort? And let me say this, first of all, once we lost to France, you very quickly, Bill, said, I'm still predicting Team USA takes the gold. Not a lot of people were saying that after that opening loss to France. You were. So kudos to you for getting that right and having faith in Team USA.
Well, they were the odds-on favorites, so maybe I wasn't going out on a limb. And also, during those exhibition games, when people were just losing their minds, when they lost Nigeria and to France, or to Australia, rather, in those exhibition games, people weren't realizing how quickly this team had to be put together, and the fact that three key players were still playing in the playoffs. Holiday and Booker, they were still playing in the NBA Finals, and Chris Middleton as well. So, Pop really didn't have a lot of time to get all these guys together. In fact, those three guys would arrive right before one of the games. So, they flew all night and got in early in the morning. So I think that it wasn't quite fair to just judge that team in those exhibition games in Vegas, or even when they first got there because they weren't complete and whole. But I had the feeling that once Pop had some time between games to kind of gather those guys together and get them on the same page and build a little chemistry, which wasn't there in the very beginning, that they would be much more successful. Of course, they were led by Kevin Durant, but he worked very hard, talking about Pop and the coaching staff for that matter, to make sure that these guys were ready to go. And as we also said, Chris, and you were backing me up on this, this is not a situation where you can roll the ball out and beat teams. These teams have gotten much, much better. I still think the U.S. had the most talent. They came together as a team. They played much better team defense as the tournament went on, and they deserved to win the gold medal. And France deserved to win the silver medal, and Australia deserved to win the bronze. There were three really good basketball teams that were destined to win, medals at the Olympics. And I was very entertained by those games. I think that you look at the roster of the French team, you look at the roster of the Australian team, there's some very, very good players, guys who've got NBA experience, international experience. So overall, a real crowning achievement, I think, for Pop to get that team to the gold medal.
Bill, I was trying to make the argument this morning that had Pop not been the head coach of that team, specifically this team, where they are coming in after a long season, you've got guys flying in after the games have already started. The only really big name on the roster is Kevin Durant, and he's your leader, but he does have some beef and hiccups with some of those teammates. That given all of that and more, Pop is really the best and only candidate who could have pulled this off. They still struggled at the end there to even get that win over France. Ultimately, yes, they did win the gold medal, but I have this gut feeling that had Pop not been there, they may have not even made it to that gold medal game. They may have been playing for bronze, or even worse, not even made it to that. But the likelihood of Pop coming back to coach in the next games, even though they're only 3 years away now, doesn't seem very likely. So is there a guy in mind that you think would take over that spot for Team USA?
Well, if Pop decides he doesn't want to do it, I would think that the natural step would be to go to Steve Kerr, who, of course, was right there with him. If Steve wants to do that, this is a time-consuming thing for these coaches who, would probably just as much enjoy time on the beach or with their family or vacationing somewhere during the summer instead of putting all this work in. And, kudos to the players and to the coaches for putting all this work in to get that gold medal. I would think that Steve would be the next guy up, but of course that's up to all the people with Team USA and with USA basketball.
He's the voice of the San Antonio Spurs, Bill Schoening, talking a little Olympic hoops with us. In a moment, we'll move to the NBA and to the Spurs. But, Bill, you talked about, and I agree with you, that Team USA had the most talent of all of those men's teams in Olympic basketball. But it seems like every year those international teams wind up having more NBA players on their roster. And it looks like the talent level among other international teams, not the USA, tends to get better and better every year. Do you see a day, in the next Olympics or 3 Olympics down the line where it'll be pretty much even, where we won't be saying, the Team USA, their talent level was head and shoulders above the other teams in the competition?
Well, it's really hard to tell because many of these teams have really made, as you point out, great strides. But I think with the population of the U.S., the popularity of basketball in the U.S., the Americans will probably always have a talent edge, you would think, overall. That's not to say that some of these teams can't come up and upset the United States. It's already happened in international competition. But it's funny, my son Carl was playing a pickup game a few years ago in New Jersey, and 2 kids came over to play this pickup game, and they were from Lithuania. And he said they look great. And in a country like Lithuania, for instance, basketball is big. And, of course, Lithuania is part of the former Soviet Union. I don't know if you ever saw the documentary, The Other Dream Team. And, Chris, I would recommend it. It was a 30 for 30, and it was a really, really good documentary. And it was about the Lithuanian basketball team in 1992. And all the star players that were on the Russian team, they're actually from Lithuania. Lithuania had finally broken away. The wall got torn down in '89 in Berlin. And it's got a lot of politics in there. But it's just about the passion that the people in Lithuania have for basketball. And that has happened across the globe. So I can see another team winning the gold medal for sure. I don't know that the talent level will be above the U.S. talent level for a while. But certainly some of these countries have come a long, long way.
Bill, as far as these Olympic teams and rosters go, Andy posed something interesting earlier this week of maybe, because the pros, they don't seem to want to go out and play in their free time. They'd rather go have that vacation. That every 4 years we just take the winner of the NCAA tournament and send them over to the Olympics. What do you think of that? Or maybe even, to go play in the Olympics, you have to qualify for the NBA playoffs, and then from there they'll start at the championship team and go down and just say we will send that team to be our Olympic team this summer.
It will be very, very difficult. That would be a tall ask for a coach to take a team over there, even a successful college team that's won the NCAA championship, because these are older guys. These are professional players. These leagues overseas are getting really good. The Australian League, the Spanish League, even the leagues in Eastern Europe now and Serbia. Some of these leagues have produced very, very good players. You look at one of the best players on the planet now is from a small country in the former Yugoslavia, Slovenia, and that, of course, Luka Doncic. So, we've seen such strides from these teams. I think it will be a very, very difficult job right now in this day and age for a team of even college all-stars to go overseas and play in the Olympics. I understand the purity of that, but if other teams are using pros, then I think that the Americans get to use pros too.
Bill, you mentioned Luka Doncic of the Dallas Mavericks, and that'll be a good segue for us to move to the NBA, and ultimately we'll do some Spurs talk with you. But as you know, earlier this week, the Dallas Mavericks roll up the Brinks truck essentially to Luka Doncic, a 5-year, $207 million contract extension. They gave him a lot of money. I think it was one of the biggest supermax deals ever. Was this kind of a no-brainer for Mark Cuban and the Mavericks? When you have a talent like that, do you do whatever you have to do to make sure he sticks around for a long time?
Yeah, he's the future of the franchise. He's the face of the franchise, and he might be one of the faces of the NBA in the future. So I think that you got to pay him the max deal, without a doubt. He's going to be the leader of that team for a long, long time. He's still very, very young. And now I guess you can buy an island in the Adriatic if you want. He's going to be cashing some checks for sure. But he's a great young player. There's no question about that. He almost got Slovenia to the gold medal. They didn't win, of course. They lost in that semifinal game or the consolation game as well. But credit to Luka and to the Mavs. They've got quite a player in the future with Doncic, who's only 22 years old.
Well, from a max contract to a guy we were just talking about, Dennis Schroeder, who denied a $84 million 4-year extension with the Lakers during the season, became a free agent. He bet on himself. He thought he was worth anywhere from $100 to $120 million contract. Now he's signing with the Celtics for $5.9 million. We see this a lot. Like, guys either just don't want to play for that team anymore, so they don't take the money. They're willing to maybe take a pay cut. But that is quite the pay cut to take, especially when you were offered $84 million. Where do you see him after this year? I mean, how do you think he's feeling after losing out on that much money?
And he lost, basically, is what happened there. It's a 1-year deal with the Celtics, so he's got a year to kind of prove himself to see if he can have a great season and then maybe be back in line to sign a multi-year deal for a lot of money. Here we're talking about $5.9 million and saying the poor guy like to sign a 5.9 one-year contract. But I think with Schroeder, he's got some skills. There's no question about that. And he probably would have fit in with the Lakers, but he was looking for a bigger payday. And this happens from time to time where guys get a little bit greedy. They think they're worth more than they are. And then other guys get signed during the free agency period, and they couldn't get him a deal. So Ime Udoka will now have Dennis Schroeder and Will Hardy, of course, in that staff now with Boston Chris. So Ime will have to learn a little German to work with Dennis Schroeder, who's from my favorite town in Germany, Braunschweig. Doesn't that just sound? My goodness. Braunschweig.
Have you been to that town in Germany, Bill Schoening?
I have not been to Braunschweig. I'd say it would be a good trip, I'm sure.
Absolutely. I imagine there's some good beer involved if you make the trip there. All right.
Very good.
All right, Bill, you mentioned Will Hardy departing the Spurs as an assistant coach. That's going to lead us into some Spurs talk. My goodness, since the last time I talked with you, So many changes for the San Antonio Spurs. Of course, DeMar DeRozan to Chicago in a sign-in trade, bringing Thaddeus Young and Al-Farouq Aminu to San Antonio. Rudy Gay goes to Utah. Patty Mills, today is his birthday. He is now a Brooklyn Net. Doug McDermott, now a San Antonio Spur. In your 20+ years as voice of the San Antonio Spurs, Bill, I got to believe this Spurs team, I don't recall this much turnover. I can't think of a season with this much turnover, certainly losing major veterans as the Spurs have. Going to be a fascinating year to see how Pop, who just got this Olympic team to play together and perform. Going to be interesting to see how Pop and this coaching staff, Becky Hammond and the others, work with a lot of new faces this coming season.
A lot of new faces, a lot of young guys. So I think that the youth movement is certainly there. And let me just say a word about Patty, because it's really it's great for him. He's got a 2-year extension, or 2-year deal rather, with the Brooklyn Nets, and he's going to have a chance to play for a title contender. But for the last decade, this guy's just been awesome, and he's been so cooperative with us and so easy to get along with, and fun to follow, fun to talk to. Just fun to be around. I got a chance to travel with the team up until the COVID year last year, and just a real ray of sunshine. And I'm so happy for him to get the bronze medal. Of course, we were pulling against him. Wanted to make sure that the Team USA got the gold. But I can't say enough good things about Patty Mills and all the stuff that he's done for the indigenous people of Australia and around the world, and for everybody. I mean, the guy is just a really good human being, and makes the world a better place. And I personally am going to miss being around Patty Mills, but I'm happy for him and this opportunity he has with Sean Marks and the folks there in Brooklyn.
Well, and we for so long now, Bill, we have been referring to Patty Mills as the longest tenured Spur. I think the longest tenured Spur mantle now goes to DeJounte Murray and Derek White. I mean, my goodness, it's you talk about a youth movement, you talk about a changing of the guard. This is going to be very, very fascinating to see how it plays out.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing some of these young guys play maybe a few more minutes. I've been interested to watch in the Summer League, for instance. Trey Jones has stepped up his game. It looks like he's working really hard. And you look for little things in Summer League, like the development of some of these younger guys. And Trey is fighting for that backup point guard spot. And he was very aggressive last night. I think he took 19 shots, scored 23 points. He had 8 assists and 16 points in the previous game. So it's really good to see a guy like Trey Jones. Devin Vassell suffered an injury yesterday in the second quarter, and I believe it was a hamstring, and they did not play in the second half. They rested Josh Primo. So I'm watching these Summer League games with interest as well, Chris, because, these guys are the future. And I think Trey Jones, maybe having an opportunity. Of course, Devin Vassell, who played quite a bit last year, they've got an opportunity to play quite a bit this coming season with this youth movement. And, I'm looking forward to seeing some of these young guys play.
He's the voice of the San Antonio Spurs, Bill Schoening. Bill, in addition to this youth movement, some of the names of these acquisitions over the last week or so, Thaddeus Young, Al-Farouq Aminu, and Doug McDermott, who, people may recall, he was a number 11 overall draft pick. He was a lottery pick. He was a big deal coming into the league. Which of these names or do you feel can maybe make a major impact for the Spurs, coming in with NBA experience as they have?
Doug McDermott certainly fills a need. The Spurs were last in the league last year in three-pointers made, and this is a guy who can fill it up from three-point range. Just a shade under 41% in his career from beyond the arc. He moves very well without the ball. He's a really good outside shooter, a good guy up and down the floor, and I think that he'll be really good for spacing, which will help guys inside a little bit. But the thing that he does is moves without the ball, and he's a really good catch and shoot. He can also work off the dribble. So I really like the acquisition of Doug McDermott. From all indications, he's a really good guy. I've talked to some other people around the league who have covered him for their respective teams. He was Dallas for a while. He's with the Indiana Pacers. So I think he'll fit right in. I'm looking forward to seeing Doug McDermott in the Spurs uniform. Although he's wearing number 17, and every time I see number 17 for the Spurs, I'll think of Brent Barry.
It'll be interesting to see if you ever call him Barry. I don't think you will, but you certainly would not be faulted because Brent Barry certainly made an impact for the Spurs with number 17. He's the voice of the.
Can you recall any other number 17s for the Spurs?
My goodness, was Mario Ellie number 17? I'd have to go back and look. Mario's jumping into my head, but I may be wrong on that number. I'd have to go Google it. But very few. I can assure you, very few number 17s over the years for the San Antonio Spurs. While we have you here, Bill, I know you follow the Texas Longhorns quite a bit. Obviously, you were the longtime voice of the Texas Longhorns. Yesterday, the college football coaches poll comes out, and the Longhorns are currently in the preseason, ranked at number 19. And I know it's preseason, and I know, things will shake out once these teams start playing football for real here in a few weeks. But, when I think of the Longhorns, I think of them as a top 15 team. Shannon feels number 19 for now is about right. Questions at quarterback, a new head coach. I kind of think they should have been ranked a little bit higher. How do you feel about the Longhorns currently being ranked number 19 in the coaches poll?
Well, I really like some of the talent they have. I think Sarkisian has brought a new energy to the campus. I haven't had a chance to meet him. I've just heard interviews with him. And, of course, Craig Way is a good friend of mine. He's the voice of the Longhorns on radio. And I know there's just this new enthusiasm and excitement around the campus. I would think that they're probably a top 15 team. I'll tell you one thing. I like this Bijan Robinson, their running back. And Sarkisian says he's going to get him 20 touches a game. And if you get that guy the ball 20 times, I think some good things are going to happen. And there's a good, healthy competition for the quarterback position. I think that's good in camp to have two guys that are capable and then fighting for that spot. The receivers seem to be really enjoying both of those quarterbacks. So I'm looking forward to seeing this football team play. I think that they're going to be good. And I'd say in the top 15. I'd put them in the top 15, but we'll see what happens. Again, injuries are always an important part of what happens. Do they have the depth to replace a guy if he goes down? Normally at the University of Texas, they do. But we'll just have to see what happens. But, I would think that they're a top 15 team.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Finally, Bill, we are in August. We're talking Spurs in the NBA. Before we know it, October will be here, and we'll be rolling again with Spurs and NBA basketball. What's on your agenda for the month of August? Any major trips? Any major events? Are you going to tour with your own band? What are you doing in August?
I don't play too many gigs live. I usually go in the studio with my music, so that is the plan now to complete a couple of songs that I've written. And one song I wrote about the basketball team in Istanbul from 5-6 years ago now, and I got to go in the studio. I think you played a rough version of it one time a few.
Yeah.
But I want to go in the studio and dress that up and put some instruments in it and just see what we can do with that. It's called Ballers from Istanbul. Then I wrote another song about my favorite English teacher in high school, Paul Grillo, who I stayed friends with all through the years. He was a poet. He was a real kind of modern guy, and just love that guy. He passed away a few years ago, like I said, so I wrote a little song to tribute to him. So I've already been in the studio working on that with my producer, Nick Whitworth. So, of course, this is a hobby. This is a side thing, but it occupies my time until we get back into college basketball games. Well,
you call it a hobby, but you're pretty darn good at it, and we always enjoy hearing your music and would love to hear more as it is created. So we would just love to hear it and debut it if possible here on this show. He's the voice of the San Antonio Spurs, Bill Schoening. Again, Bill, throughout this summer, NBA playoffs, NBA finals, Olympic basketball, and now NBA analysis as there's a lot of moving players in the league. We always appreciate your perspective and your time. Thanks for joining us this morning, Bill.
Well, thanks for having me, Chris. Good to see you guys.
All right, Bill Schoening, the voice of the San Antonio Spurs. Coming up, let's dive back into the NFL. Let's talk a little more Dallas Cowboys and Hard Knocks. Of course, Cowboys in action. Preseason game number 2 for them coming up this weekend. We're already at Wednesday, so I do believe there's some Thursday games in the NFL. So lots more football coming our way. Maybe talk a little Houston Texans and talk a little Sam Ellinger getting ready, or not getting ready, but taking, as we have reported and talked about, first team snaps with the Indianapolis Colts. That and a whole lot more. She's Shannon Salty Sweeney. Dave Ayler making the show go with you till 9 on the Chris Duel Show. Woo! Woo! Thank you, Anthony Huerta, on the check on Mario Ellie. Francisco Ellis or Francisco Elston. Very cool, Barney Segura. It's your birthday. We'll have to give you a birthday shout out, Barney. Happy birthday, Barney. I'll do that on the radio here in a sec as we come back. Woo! 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 Jonathan Simmons and Charlie Ward were 17s. Paul Anthony Salazar, thank you for that. Wow, how could we forget Jonathan Simmons? All right. Shannon, because of this new setup, I didn't realize there was you had something in the private chat. I love that moment with Jerry that you mentioned. So, and I just got a thing from The Athletic with their 5 takeaways from Hard Knocks. So we'll get into a little bit of Hard Knocks here and recap some of the big takeaways. The Athletic mentioned something that I forgot about, which was odd. That whole, and I'll mention that whole exchange, John Fossil, the assistant coach, about his vasectomies. A little too much information, John. Here we come. Morning grooves provided by Mr. Dave Ayler, your soundscape stylist. Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney. Our thanks to the voice of the San Antonio Spurs, Bill Schoening. And Bill brought up a great question that we're getting a lot of reaction to on Facebook Live, which was, Doug McDermott will wear number 17. Who else wore number 17 for the San Antonio Spurs? And Mario Ellie on the 99 championship team did indeed wear number 17. Some other people reminding us of Jonathan Simmons, who Jonathan Simmons was a great story, a guy who had to pay money to get a tryout with the D League, which is now the G League, wound up making the Spurs having a big career and then going and getting paid by other teams, which was cool. Charlie Ward, for a moment, played for the Spurs in 2004, wore number 17. And, of course, Brent Barry, who was brought up by Bill Schoening in the previous segment. Shannon, we opened the show, and to me, if you're a Cowboys fan, it is one of the big stories of the morning. It's Hard Knocks, which dropped last night at 9 o'clock on HBO and on HBO Max. So hopefully most people listening, if you haven't seen it yet, you can grab it on demand. you and I were talking about a number of our takeaways, and I just got an alert that The Athletic, the sports website, The Athletic, now has their 5 biggest takeaways. I'll get into those in a moment, but you have something you found pretty interesting from the Hard Knocks episode that involved Cowboys owner Jerry Jones.
Yeah, we all knew we were going to get plenty of Jerry, especially in episode 1. It did not take long. It was 5 minutes and 33 seconds into episode 1 when we first saw him. They decided to go with the press conference when he was getting emotional about he'd do anything to win a Super Bowl. And then they carry on and they show some practices and they start talking about Dak's arm. The trainer says, he needs to sit out. And then we cut to, and Jerry is in his little, they have like portables out there for the coaches to be in during camp. And Jerry's got his own, he's got his little desk and he's got some paper in front of him. And he's having conversation with the trainer about how he's reached out to the Rangers organization as well as New York about what to do with Dak and his arm. And Jerry's talking to him and he's messing around with, I don't know if it's a McGriddle or a McMuffin or what, but some sort of breakfast item from McDonald's. And probably the most disturbing thing I've seen recently, he picks up a salt shaker because naturally everyone has salt shakers on their desk.
Sure.
And dumps salt all over his McDonald's breakfast. Like, that's so nasty, right?
A ton of salt.
A ton of salt.
He kept on shaking.
How is he alive? How often is he eating this McDonald's and putting salt on it? How much salt does he put on everything else? Has he ever had a kidney stone? Like, what? My kidneys would rupture immediately. Like, what? This man, I don't understand. Is it because his wife isn't there and now she's going to see this and be like, Jerry, we talked about this. No added salt. That's nasty to begin with. I mean, forget that it was added salt, but the salt on a McMuffin, that's nasty.
I agree with you.
That's nasty.
I absolutely agree. And I don't know if it's like an old wives' tale or, I mean, when I was in high school a gazillion years ago, I remember hearing, if you put too much salt on things, you get high blood pressure. So I don't even know if that's real or not. A doctor can. But I always heard. So ever since I heard that as a kid, it's like, oh man, I'm going to back off the salt.
Yeah.
So, all right. You found that gross. Did you hear the conversation? Assistant coach John Fossil sharing several minutes with the players on a surgical procedure he had that apparently he had reversed later, a vasectomy. Thank you, John Fossil. A little too much information there, I thought.
Yeah, you know what? I think they try to throw in these things to be like, look, they have fun. They talk about life. It's not all football 24/7. But I watched it this morning, so I'm also doing other work preparing for the show. So I'm paying attention, but I hear these key words, like they kept saying balls, and I was like, what? They're not out there practicing. Are they showing film? What's happening? And that's what they're talking about. And then they're asking him about usage after the fact, and then how they get it done, and the procedure itself. And it was one of those moments where you're like, they didn't have anything else. They started filming so early, and they didn't have anything else they could put there.
I would have thought that would have been one of them. So I'm looking at The Athletic, and we'll see if we agree with him.
Okay.
The writer, John Machada, who I follow on Twitter, he's a really good Cowboys reporter and a really good follow. But he's got an article in the Athletic, his 5 takeaways. Takeaway 1 was everything Dak Prescott. And as you said, yes, Shannon, and I agree, the big jaw dropper very early on was the fact that Dak Prescott revealed he had 2, not 1, but 2 surgeries. And Dak even said he kept one of those secret. They kept that one close to the vest as far as the media or the public. Mm-hmm. So I agree with that. And as you said at the top of the show, Shannon, the footage they showed of Dak's injury was a little rough to relive and watch. But I mean, if you want to understand where Dak is right now, that's a big part of the story that needed to be told. Number 2 takeaway by this writer is Ezekiel Elliott's workload in camp. I was more impressed by his gift wrapping abilities, and as you played the audio, stealing Dak's bike. Yeah.
He's just a good friend.
Yeah. Number 3 takeaway from John Machada of The Athletic, Micah Parsons. I agree. Micah Parsons and his performance, outstanding performance in the few plays that he played in that game against the Steelers in the Hall of Fame game was a big deal. But what he cites too as well, on the bench, he's talking to Leighton Vander Esch, and Leighton Vander Esch, as a veteran, says, you're trying to make every play. You know, you're running all over the field and you're trying to make every play. I kind of liked that, Shannon, and I didn't like that. It almost, the subtext to me sounded like Leighton Vander Esch is saying sometimes he takes a play off if it's not coming in his direction. I don't know how did you feel about that?
It feels like something Sean Lee probably told him, and that he's just kind of passing that on.
Yeah.
And to make every play. Well, Leighton, how about you be on the field for most plays to start? How about we start there? How about we stop with the constant injuries and start with just getting on the field before we talk about making plays on it?
Yeah. Number 4 takeaway, Mike McCarthy's addressing the entire team, peppered with F-bombs. Yeah. I would, again, Shannon, I hear a lot of F-bombs on Hard Knocks every year. I think I heard like 40% more F-bombs specifically from Mike McCarthy, and even a few from Dak that it's like, whoa, that's a lot of F-bombs.
Like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if we cut to next week and they're talking about how they got phone calls from friends and family who are like, you need to be more of a gentleman. Can we talk about Mojo?
Absolutely.
First of all, I've never seen Austin Powers. Now, the song, I was in high school marching band, so I'm very familiar with that. So that was annoying. But the Mojo is like their thing this year. And apparently it equates to a change in momentum. I don't know if it's like, it's cute right now, but you're going to look like a fool if you don't put that out on the field and actually run with any momentum you get. I mean, the defense, it's not like they were causing a lot of turnovers to get those opportunities to then make something happen on the offensive side. But I think it's fun. I think it's cute. It makes good television.
Yeah. Well, and I wonder, for a room in training camp of a lot of like 22-ish year olds, 22, 23, 24, showing the Austin Powers video clip, is that a little dated for Mike McCarthy?
Like, again, I've never seen it. It came out when I was still, like, my parents thought I was too young to see it, and it's just something I never made time to see. I know that it's a thing, and I know, like, the pinky to the face, like, I know the reference, but I couldn't tell you what that movie is actually about. And maybe that's why they got the reaction they did from these guys, because they were like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah. Yes. But to me, that reeked of Mike McCarthy being a little bit out of touch with, he needs to hang out with some more 22-year-olds and have a better idea of what might get to them other than Mojo from the Austin Powers movie.
This isn't Aaron Rodgers anymore. You got to come down a decade or two.
I want to go back to it because we touched upon it, and some people just tuning in since then. In the Indianapolis Colts camp, of course, Carson Wentz did go out, although there's news on that we talked about. Now he's back. It looks like he's trying to rush back into action, but Sam Ellinger getting some first team snaps. A great opportunity here for Sam Ellinger to really turn some heads. And I saw this morning the update that there's a contract extension for Frank Reich, the head coach of the Colts. So if you can impress Frank Reich, who's like a quarterback whisperer and a guy who played quarterback at a high level in this league, and a guy who engineered one of the greatest comebacks in playoff history for the Buffalo Bills when they broke the hearts of Houston Oiler fans back in the day. Hopefully Sam Ellinger is making the most of this opportunity.
I think there's 4 quarterbacks on that roster right now. So, I think it's fair to say he'd probably be third, right? They drafted him, they signed him already. So I think now he's really fighting for that second, that backup spot, and even the chance to maybe start, depending on Carson Wentz's recovery. It was very strange that he was at practice. It was very strange that he was not wearing a boot. It's only been 8 days. We saw what happened to him the last time he rushed back from an injury. You'd think he'd learn from that it can all come crashing down in an instant, and then you kind of lose your job over it, because he was never the same after that. And who knows what we would have gotten from him this year prior to this injury, and what we're going to get afterwards. So, Sam needs to make the most of these opportunities. I'm happy to see that he's getting them. I'm happy to see that it's bringing attention to him, that people are talking about him, because they're not just going to give you first string reps if you're not worthy of those reps. And so hopefully he's making the most of those. And well, I'm looking forward to this weekend. I haven't seen the TV lineup as far as what games will be on in our region. I hope that that's one of them because I'd love to see Sam play in a different uniform.
And of course, NFL Network has a whole bunch of them live. And I think NFL Network prides itself on, you can see every preseason game. Sometimes they're recorded, but
I can't
tape delayed.
afford that
But
channel.
you can go hang out at High Five or go, go make a friend who has the NFL Network. I do want to, before we check the poll results, a regular participant on the live video feed, Barney Segura, is alongside Patty Mills, Craig Elo, and Hulk Hogan. Barney Segura is celebrating a birthday today. He says it's the big 60. So happy birthday, Barney Segura. Thanks for joining us. And Shannon, the poll question had to do with the Texas Longhorns ranking of number 19 in the college football preseason coaches poll. Bill Schoening agrees with me that they're more like a top 15 kind of a team. So we posed a question to our listeners/viewers.
Yeah, asking if you feel that 19 ranking is about right, too high or too low. 62% saying about right, 25% saying too high, and 12% saying too low.
And you're in the about right camp.
I'm in the about right camp. I like, there's certain narratives that start coming out based on your rank, and I think this one kind of keeps us in the clear of overrated, underrated. I'm going to say we're just about right here.
All right, and of course, you can just get out there on the football field and just start winning and win a lot, and you move up in the rankings. It's a beautiful thing. Shannon Salty Sweeney, outstanding as always. Let's do this again in 21 hours.
Thank you, sir. Glad to have you back.
Great to be back. Dave Ayler, you rock as always, sir.
Thanks. Let's do it again
tomorrow. Absolutely. Would love to. We'll do it. 6 a.m. tomorrow, 6 to 9. Our thanks to the great Bill Schoening, the voice of the San Antonio Spurs, who has been a wonderful basketball analyst for us throughout the NBA playoffs and finals, and now through the Olympics as well. Have yourself a wonderful Wednesday. Go get a look at Hard Knocks if you can, and we will regroup here in 21 hours. Hasta la vista, amigos.